Paul Sandeman. Hi, this is Paul Sandeman with Business Success Tips. We learn to make more money in less time and have more fun. I'm the founder of Contractor Staffing Source, where we help build great teams for contractors. I have Jeani Ringkob, is that right?
Ringkob.
Ringkob. I was close. Jeani Ringkob.
You were close. You were close.
From StoryBuilt Growth Strategy and Marketing. So, Jeani, tell me about what your company does and why people should listen to you.
So actually I'm a third generation contractor. So I've actually grown up right in the trenches, just like a lot of the people that I work with these days. And these days I help business owners by coming in and helping them with strategic growth planning and fractional CMO services. So we can kind of customize and tailor to meet their needs as they're growing their businesses.
Okay, explain to me what a fractional CMO is.
So it's really a great concept. Instead of having the full commitment of bringing an executive level marketing head and brain into your business, you kind of get to borrow that in your business, and you have some flexibility about how quickly and how deeply you want to build that stuff into your team. So it gives you flexibility and scalability. If you want to have somebody who's managing a couple small pieces with very specific skills on your team, we can manage those people, build those people. We can spend 6 to 12 months helping you actually recruit, hire, and build your own team. Or we have a whole fleet of experts on our team if this is something where you really want to stay focused in your own wheelhouse. Concentrate on where your strengths are, but know that you have that piece. And if you want any of those pieces, if you need SEO work done, if you need a video created, if you're trying to build a funnel, you can do that.
So Becky, can you explain, because a lot of people listening to this have no clue what a chief marketing officer does.
Right. Absolutely.
So what does this chief marketing officer do? Let's say for a small construction company doing 3 million, and we can all understand if you got $100 million company, but a lot of people listening are small companies, 1 million and 5 million, right? So why would they need a CMO? What is the CMO going to do? And what is the definition of that for a smaller company? What does a chief marketing officer do for a $3 million, remodeling company?
Right. So a chief marketing officer would come in and be part of the executive team. So they would be privy to the conversations and, offer perspective on how are we positioned in the marketplace? How are we perceived? What bottlenecks or opportunities related to capturing more market share might be there? Really kind of analyzing and thinking analytically and from a data perspective, because they're at that executive level, about what are the bottlenecks stopping the business from growing from a sales and marketing standpoint and market share? And then how can we overcome those or turn them into opportunities? It even bleeds into workforce a lot.
So let's say I'm going to define sales as everything after the phone rings, assume they have a phone, and marketing everything that gets the phone to ring, right? Some version of that.
Right.
So is the CMO have to do with the whole protocol between getting the phone to ring, and then once the phone rings, how it's answered, somebody go out until the deal's closed, or is it just getting the leads to come in?
So I think they need to be highly integrated, which is one of the benefits of having somebody that's at that executive level, that's working with a sales manager and an owner as well. I always like to say we want to blur the lines between sales and marketing, because sales is out there having these actual conversations, but a real efficient system inside of our businesses is actually taking everything those salespeople are learning. What are they telling them? What is customer service hearing? Everything they're hearing out in the field. What are the objections that you're coming up with? What kinds of questions are you getting asked on a sales call? What we know to be true pre-COVID is that the consumer was 70% of the way to a decision before they ever wanted to have contact with a salesperson or an actual company, because they are trained these days, and it's just accelerating with the younger generations coming up. They want to go do their own research. They want to consume content to answer their own questions, and they want to be pretty good ways along before they actually get engaged with a company. So creating the marketing and the content, and really the opportunity for them to come to you to feel like you've created that know, and trust factor before they've ever gotten on a call with you. right? So you want to really make the sales team's job so much easier. And it's great when you have a sales member or a team member that's saying, these are the kinds of questions that I'm getting, turns that back into marketing, and marketing says, great, this is the kind of content we could create from that. And these are the kind of containers that we can distribute that content in, because we know this is where people are consuming and asking these questions online. Because if one of your potential customers is asking that question, there's a whole lot more that are asking that question out there, and that could be brought into your environment if you're putting that out there.
So a lot of times the lines are blurred between like pay-per-click, like paying for the leads, versus building a brand. And then, how you distribute the money between, paying for a lead versus building brand. And then also the salesperson, when they go out and make the call. So let's say there's 3 buckets. There's, paying for a lead, which is pay-per-click or something like that.
Right.
There's building a brand, which has with SEO and all that kind of stuff. And there's a salesperson who goes out and actually closes the deal. So if you have, what percentage, let's say a $3 million company and you're a remodeling company versus a service company. What percentage of your gross should you spend on marketing, and how should you spend it between pay-per-click, building brand, and actually going out and closing the deal?
Right. So I think it's going to depend a little bit on the market, how much competition you have, how well you're already known and kind of penetrated into your market. Obviously, we always want to look at how do we minimize that? How do we get the most for as little as possible? So I'm going to say anywhere between 7 to 10% on that marketing side. And a lot of the activities, if you're smart and you're really strategic about it, a lot of the activities that you're doing to generate content are helping to continually build the brand itself. Those are pretty interrelated. And if they're done effectively, they should really kind of depend on each other and work constantly. You're continuing to build that brand and study that brand. And that's kind of an ever evolving thing. You might have some upfront costs with a new company where you're going to have to invest a little bit more if you're trying to create that initial awareness and really kind of figure out where you sit, and you need to capture that original awareness. On the sales side, that's largely going to depend on compensation, how much sales team you need. But if we can be really effective with marketing, we can reduce some of the expense on the sales side and have a really streamlined, really impactful sales team that's really integrated with marketing. And so that kind of helps you be able to have a little bit more flex in that budget.
Now, how would you change between, there's, hunters and farmers, right? I mean, hunters go out and find somebody and kill them, and farmers wait for the thing to grow up and harvest it. So, and a lot of remodeling contractors, if you said you need to spend, pick a number, 10% of $2 million is $200,000, they'd say you're crazy. Like, no way am I going to spend this money in marketing.
Right.
So how do you convince people to do that? And how do you do you prefer the farming approach? You nurture leads and the person goes out who's sort of okay and can close them because it's sort of like an order taker, but not exactly, versus a sales guy who's literally calling people, doing cold calling and actually finding people and closing them. Do you have any preference?
Right. So I think one of the things that I'm driven by really constantly researching, understanding markets, and looking at data. And I think one of the things that we see, especially in the decision makers that we're currently dealing with and that we know we're going to see in the next 10, 20 years, they want to go, if we refer back to that statistic from pre-COVID, if it was 70%, I'm sure we're really closer to 80% because COVID forced people that hadn't been consuming as much content to go consume more. So I really think that we have to think about how do we actually start getting those leads to come to us and then get really, really efficient at converting them once they're there. That's the way I think with a company like that, when you're describing that, I think that's really your best. So thinking about online business development, and it still needs to be really integrated with sales, but how can you be showing up where they're asking the questions, right? If somebody's looking for a pool for their backyard, or they're looking to remodel a home, or they're looking to put a driveway in, they have questions about that. They don't want to have a conversation with somebody and look stupid or not know what kind of questions to ask. They're going to go do some research out there. And you really want to be able to be that person that nurtures them and brings them in. So I think of it as online business development. Where are they at? Where are they hanging out? Where are they asking these questions? And how can you become somebody that they know, like, and trust because they've already consumed your content? You've already answered some of their questions and helped them kind of go down the journey. So I like to map it out. We always use maps in our strategy modeling of that customer journey when they're completely unaware. Maybe they're unaware of the fact that they have a problem and they're unaware of the solution. Then they get closer to awareness, then they make a decision, and hopefully at the end, they're actually advocating for your brand. So if you look at that whole process, where can we create touch points along that whole thing? And I think it's really highly integrated. I actually have a visual when we are presenting our strategic plans to clients where we talk about all of those touch points, and there's about 7 of them as we move them through that journey. And we talk about all the activities that sales doing at each one of those touch points and all the activities that marketing is doing during
Well,
each one of those touch point periods too.
so to me, there's a little bit, let's say, I would say if you're a remodeler or a service business like HVAC or something, you're depending on going retail, which is direct to the public.
Right.
I think that, the farming strategy works. I would say that if you are calling on architects and calling on designers, the hunter strategy works, because one is sort of a wholesale. You're trying to find centers of influence that are going to send you work, like designers and architects. Whereas the other one, you're going to the end consumer and you're competing with all those other people out there that are trying to get their attention. So I think it really depends. But
It does.
so if you're looking at, again, a marketing budget of 7%, how do you convince, and I'm sure you've run into this in the past, people that have had a fraction of that? Let's say they're a $3 million construction company, they've been in business 10 years, and they probably spent $10,000 on marketing, and not much. They have a website, they have some stuff out there, and they're doing remodeling. How do you make the point that, okay, I know you're $3 million, you only spent like nothing on marketing. Now I want you to spend $100,000. Have you ever had that problem, and how do you get to make that decision?
Right. And I think you always have to think baby steps. And if you're growing your company, unless you know that you're looking at going after a very specific geographical expansion, or you're adding a new product or service, and you know that you're at a point where you need to make a massive leap in investment, I think you have to be really cognizant of what's realistic. So I think trying to do things in increments, and trying to also don't always just look and do what everybody else around you is doing. Maybe you jump down on that, right? Do it in steps, but prioritize your strategy. What can you do that you can get the most maximum return out of? Is that really having somebody dedicated to a specific social platform that's targeting the right types of customers and trying to get that content in front of them? Is it going to events and showing up at specific events and having the very, very, really dialing messaging in and trying to get the most out of a couple investments in that area? Is it finding a really strategic partner and figuring out how you guys can collaborate together and really focusing the dollars that you're going to spend towards that? So there's a ton of different things that we can do. I think it's really important that we don't always say, I have to do what my competitor's doing. I have to do what that person over there that I aspire to be is doing. Do what's really right for you at the place you're at, but constantly be challenging yourself to go up that next 10%, right? 10% maybe in spend, but then challenge yourself also to get the most ROI out of that spend, right? I want to see my clients spend a little bit more, but I want them to be blown away by how much they get in return.
Okay. So maybe the first thing would be to hire a CMO. I mean, and a lot of these guys are going to, how can I afford that? But to me, I'm thinking what you're doing as a chief marketing officer may help educate them into where to spend the money. Because a lot of these people I know, it's sort of like they sort of don't know what they don't know, right?
Right.
And so they got a remodeling company, they've been doing 3 million, been in business 10 years, they're doing okay. And they go, no, am I going to spend $100,000? I mean, it ain't going to happen.
Right.
So my thought is maybe hiring a CMO like yourself can show where they could spend the money, because at least you know what you know, and they don't they don't know what they don't know. So they need to have somebody like you.
Do it with strategy, do it with data, borrow somebody's brain that knows what they're doing. There's a million things, like I said, you can do in marketing, and following what your competitor is doing probably isn't the best thing. I know when we think about whether or not we're going to pursue something, we talk about litmus tests, and differentiation is one of the primary things that I want people to look at. I don't want you doing exactly what they're doing. I want to figure out what's unique about you, what's best about you, what is different about you, and what aligns you with your best customers. And then I want to lean into that. And like I said, you can do this in stages. It's better to have really great information and have somebody on your team that can advise you, and then you can start to scale up from there. The great thing about a fractional CMO is you don't have the overhead of a salary and benefits and all of that kind of stuff. You're just borrowing a chunk of their time. You don't need that person on your staff full time. And then as you grow, you have the flexibility to say, hey, I want to borrow resources that you have access to, or we want to bring somebody in my team, and I also want to borrow your expertise to find that person, hire that person, and develop and train that person, because I do want them on my team.
So I have a question. Is the CMO, I'm assuming you're what, you're just a small amount compared to the whole budget, right? So you come in as a fractional CMO and then you decide where to spend the money. Now, do you have resources you're going to use, or are you going to look at other companies that might be helping, whether it's building websites or pay-per-click or whatever? Do you say, okay, as your fractional CMO, are you taking an objective look at their niche market, where they are, and what's the best resource for them, which may not be your resources? Is that possible?
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's why I've designed, and certain fractional CMOs, I've seen it done different ways. I've intentionally designed my business so that I have subcontractors that I network with. A big part of my responsibility and my onerous onto my clients is that I spend a lot of time networking and building a huge network of really specific, great, talented people that want to work under people like me. So if they're the best fit, so you can have access to a really great videographer that designs incredible photos, but you only have to do it once, right? And if we need to find them in your local area, I can do that. If I need to find them in a different location, because I have clients that are located in different places, or they have projects that are in different locations than maybe where they're headquartered. So I intentionally design that to be really flexible. But I also have clients who have somebody doing social media management for them, but they decided we need that executive strategy piece to what we're doing to help guide that person. And I actually manage that person. They actually report to me directly, and I'm part of that executive team. I have people that are like, we want to build our own marketing department within the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm actually there to help them do that and bring that people along. So eventually they have that all built into their own company, and I'm not there anymore. So we have a lot of flexibility.
Because I'm seeing that as sort of a different, because most companies, they don't hire a CMO, CMO, they hire a marketing company. They say, okay, I'm going to hire a company, they're going to do my website, and they don't look for a CMO, they look for a marketing company that does all the stuff, builds brand, does SEO, does websites, do the pay-per-click, all that kind of stuff. So my concern with that is if you hire a marketing company, they're prejudiced toward their stuff, right?
Right.
Because that's what they do, right? And so I'm seeing the upside of a CMO is you're a small cost compared to what the big budget is. And you can say, look, here are 4 different marketing companies you might consider. This one has strengths here, this one has strengths there. And you might say, well, this is a good person to build your website, but they're not really good at pay-per-click stuff. And use maybe this person for pay-per-click, or this person is not the best social media, because you could use this person who's social, or you could do social media internally because it's cheaper. You can have Susie, who knows how, just on your own team, spend 10 hours a week doing social media, and you just have them build your website, and have this other company, which is really good at pay-per-click, do that. So I would see the advantage of a CMO is you have a way larger resource base, and you can use internal resources versus just hire a marketing company and they're just going to give you all that stuff. Is that true?
Right. And we want to pick and choose based on what the strategy is. Like, what was that bottleneck that we know that you need to overcome, or what was the opportunity in your market that we want to take advantage of to get that next big boost in momentum? And maybe it requires video, maybe it requires more social media, maybe it requires more content creation put out there, whatever that is. But we like to have the flexibility, and I don't care what that is. I'm not biased when I come in. I know I can provide and put that together, or I can help you find that person to bring onto your team and help you manage them and develop them. But I don't come in with that bias. I come in really looking for what's best for your company.
So,
And since I support you at that executive level, that's my motivation.
so it's sort of like hiring a fractional CFO, because they're not
Right.
in love with the accounting department or the bookkeeping department or stuck on whatever. They just say, look, you can do this bookkeeping internally. You should outsource to this CPA. And they look at the best value and resources, not just a one-shot deal. That's why I think a
Right.
fractional CFO, and a CMO is the same kind of person. A
Right.
CFO is going to help you make better decisions and use internal and external resources to get the biggest bang for your buck, I'm assuming, right?
And I always say, like, they say the average person makes over 500 decisions a day just about food. We make over 3,000 decisions a day in general. And I think if you're a business owner, people are dependent on you, your customers are on you, you're building a business, you're making a lot more than that. And the weight of those decisions is really steep, which is a lot for somebody. So I think it's really important to move from making tons and tons of decisions to making less decisions that are more strategic, that have better information backing them up. And that means that, like you said, you have a CFO, or you talk to your accountant about those types of decisions. You have a chief marketing officer or a fractional marketing officer that you can go to and talk about those things as well, right? We have specialists that we go to and talk about that. And the goal is to make strategic decisions before we execute on tactics. And when it comes to marketing, a lot of us just go, well, I need to be on social media, so I'm going to go hire somebody to execute the tactics. Well, what's your
Right.
strategy? Why are you on social media? What's your website
Right.
supposed to be doing for you? What questions is your content answering? Or are you just paying somebody to create content?
Right. Because I think the problem with that's why we do recruiting, because most people don't know how to recruit. It's the same kind of thing with
Right.
marketing.
Right.
They think, well, I mean, I'll build a website, I'll pay this company, pick a number, $3,000 a month, and they'll do and they don't really know what they're doing. And then what happens is the industry gets a terrible reputation, in a
Right.
sense, because I know lots of contractors that have a lot of negative things to say about SEO and marketing in general, because they've gone to 3 or 4 companies, they've spent X dollars, they haven't gotten a return on that. They don't have the patience to stay with somebody long enough sometimes. So that's also a
Right.
reason. They stay with somebody for 3 months ago, it didn't work, and they fire them and get somebody else new.
Right.
So now, question, Jeani, what does it cost? Like, say, to hire a CMO? Is it hourly? Is it, by, a like monthly retainer? How does the pricing structure work?
So pricing structure for me works on a monthly retainer basis. And we go everywhere from more of an advisory fractional CMO, which means maybe we're just in that early strategy piece for a few months, and then we determine what we need, and then we may reevaluate depending on if you're going to outsource it directly and I'm going to manage them, if you're going to borrow stuff from me, whatever that is, all the way to a more really super engaged where you actually have a team that I'm managing them. They're all reporting to me, or you're using all of my resources. So it's always like a monthly retainer. Like you said, this is something that you need to commit to. You're not going to see a blowout in 30 days. Definitely our focus is let's get some short-term wins early on while we're building a good solid foundation and strategy. But you have to make a commitment to do this, and having the peace of mind that we're going to let you grow at the right, healthiest pace for you, for the success of your business long term, should give you peace of mind. So that can change during that time, but usually you're talking anywhere from about 4,500. I mean, some people, depending on how much they're doing, how big their company is, and all of the other things that they're spending on, that budget can go up to 20. But if you think about hiring an internal chief marketing officer, you're talking about a salary of at least probably 170 starting. plus then all of the benefits on top of that. So it really gives you the ability to have a flexible scenario and grow with it as you need.
So what would be the smallest company that you could work with that would pay you like $4,500 a month? I mean, I'm just trying to think of these guys because they tend to be very frugal as a group, right? Especially
Right.
contractors.
Right.
And trying to get them to spend money, like sometimes they buy coaches and they're like 3,000 a month. So what's like the least amount that you would take on a client for? Because I know a lot of people are thinking that in the audience right now, like she's really great, but I can't afford her.
Right.
What is like the least amount you would consider working for a contractor for as a fractional CMO to help them get their program together?
We're probably looking at 4,500
Okay.
retainer, and then probably a minimum of a 3-month commitment. And that would
Okay.
be with the preface that like, we're going to kind of just develop like your first basic initial strategy.
Okay.
Right. And it's all value based. If I'm working with a much larger, complicated business, that's not going to work. That would
Right.
be for a really simple, small business, probably bound by a specific geographic area. I mean, we have companies that are across the country, very complex, multiple stuff. And then we have companies that are really small. We have startup companies. We have companies that are very specific product, specific location. So the variety really depends.
And I
But
would
usually
say,
we're looking at 6 to 12-month commitments to
okay.
really make sure that we can build a strategy and build the systems and processes into the business.
And so I would tell the people listening to this podcast, if you don't have a CMO and you own a company, you are one.
Right, you are.
Yeah. Now,
Just
whether
like
you're good at it or not
accountants,
is an entirely different question. But if
right?
you don't have a CMO and you're the owner, trust me, you are the CMO. And you
Right,
may be good at it or may not be good at it, but that's going to be part of your jobs, right? Cool.
right, right.
So Jeani, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they reach you?
Yeah. You can check out our website. We have lots of resources on there, and you can also get time on my calendar right there. It's at storybuilt.marketing. That's STORYBUILT.marketing. And I hang out and am in my messages all the time on LinkedIn. So we always have people hitting us up for resources. And we actually are right now putting together a guide for how to use a fractional CMO in your business that'll really kind of get into some specific ideas of, if you're getting started, what are some of the best ways to get those early wins when you're bringing somebody like this into your company. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that would be a great way. You can just hit me up in DM and I'll send that resource to you.
Well, I would say, go to ChatGPT and say, what does a fractional CMO do for a small construction company? And you probably get a whole list of things you should be doing, but you're not.
Right. Absolutely. That's the first way to do it. But if you have questions about I love talking to contractors. I grew up in the industry. This is why I'm in the industry. I know these are hard businesses and you're really stretched thin. And I grew up wherever, you're switching your hat all the time. But at some point you have to say, and the companies that level up, each time you level up, what you see is they figure out, what am I good at? And they bring in the support for that next big hurdle that they need to get to. So looking at that in your business, and I mean, I've had businesses where I'm like, look, this is not where you're at right now. I suggest you go here first, right?
And I would suggest, call Jeani, because even though, my God, I can't afford that. A conversation with you is going to be very helpful. Even if they don't hire you, I think they can learn at least to know what they don't know. Like, what does the CMO do? How can I help? Because I think a lot of these guys, I'm sure very few people on this podcast have one, pretty much guaranteed, because they're all small, right? And they're going, I am too small for CMO. I'm not sure I can afford. So I would encourage you, even though you think, my God, I can't afford $4,500 a month, you can certainly afford a phone call. I mean, you can call her up and you can say, Jeani, I'm only doing 3 million. My whole marketing budget was not that much last year. How can I afford you? It's a question you can ask her and she can tell you an answer to it. But I guarantee you'll be smarter at the end of the phone call than you are at the beginning. And someone once said, smart people learn from their mistakes and wise people learn from the mistakes of others. So I would definitely say that's a phone call you should make. So
yeah, and I think one of the funnest things about those conversations is sometimes you find a golden nugget, on the floor that's dusty and you've been stepping over it and kicking it out of the way and cursing it because it's getting in your way, and you're like, somebody else's fresh eyes sometimes can make you go, oh wait, I'm missing a whole opportunity. Like,
Right. I mean,
there's a whole part of my,
if I
I'm
just did
leaving
this
all this
one
money
little
on the
thing, I
floor.
could double my business, right?
Right,
So I
absolutely.
think, and you may give them one suggestion, and to me, not calling someone like you, not even understanding what the opportunity is, just isn't smart, because it doesn't cost anything with the phone call. So I'd highly encourage people in this audience to give Jeani a call, and I guarantee you'll learn more at the end of the phone call than you do at the beginning. So
Yeah,
thanks,
honestly,
Jeani. I
you guys
appreciate.
can call my cell phone. Like, I'm happy to just 720-441-7660.
There
Just
you
call
go.
me
I
up.
mean, how often does a girl give you your number? We've all been to
I
parties,
know,
right?
I know.
So there you go. Cool. Okay.
All right,
Thanks, Jeani. I appreciate your time.
absolutely.